Hello again, this is John, and this time we have a Pfaff 1222E to discuss, and it looks pretty plain from outward appearances, but there's a lot going on with it. For instance, on the dial, it has a lot of different patterns, and the dial is also used for doing the buttonholes and stitch length, so we'll get into that a little later. This is the reverse lever, and if you flip it all the way over, now it's set for darning. And I don't know if you can see the little symbol on top, but it has a darning symbol on top here, and then when you flip it back here, it's got a little reverse arrow to tell you which way to have the lever flipped. So then we have under the little lid here all the patterns, and I'll pull this off a little bit later, but it's got 5 utility stitches on this side and then 5 decorative stitches on this side. And there's 2 sets of cams underneath the cover. The cams for this row is over on this side, and the cams for this row is over on this side. And so these 2 dials have to do with these 2, or this row of buttons. So I guess let me just try to pull that off now. So now we have a better view of what it looks like underneath here. This cam stack is for this set of buttons, and this cam stack over here is for this set of buttons. And then if you look over here, here's the belt that runs down to the lower shaft. So that's the timing belt. And then over here we have just the normal stuff going on. The counterweight and the take-up lever and everything underneath there. This is probably a mid-70s vintage, late 70s, maybe even 80s vintage. It's, I think it's made out of cast aluminum, and the cams are, they're probably nylon. This one looks to be a little different color than this one. Maybe this one's been replaced. I've seen photos of these cams that they get a split in them when they get old and shrink. I guess the plastic shrinks a little bit, and so they get old and get a crack all the way across them. But I think you might be able to still buy these cam stack. I'm not positive, but I think so. This is the upper thread tension assembly, and the knob on the side here is to adjust that. This lever is for the needle threader that flips down and flips out to where the needle is. And this table comes off, and down here we have the lower bobbin inside there. So that's all there is to it. Actually, the foot lever on the back, it's got it does a couple of different things too. It I don't know if I can flip this around. But this, so now the foot is down, and the lever isn't quite vertical yet. if you pull it this direction while the foot is down, it will raise the needle to its uppermost position and stop. And that's they say that's so you can rethread the lower bobbin. If you run out of thread on the lower bobbin, you can put the foot down, run the needle down in once, and then pull the lower bobbin thread back up through the hole. And if you flip this up so it's horizontal, now the foot's up, and if you then push it up again past that horizontal position, it does the same cycle. So when you're doing a normal threading the lower bobbin, or getting the lower bobbin thread up, you normally have the foot up in this position, and then you just push it up once, and then it goes down, picks up the lower thread, and brings the needle back up again. And then you pull that back down to the horizontal position. So it's got some interesting features to it. Just let me do that once more. You just flip it up, and it does one complete cycle and then stops. Oh, one other lever. There's this lever on the right side here, and that has to do with when you're doing buttonholes. I'll show how that works a little bit later. So this inside knob, the normal three positions are needle in the right position, needle in the center position, and then needle in the left position. So right, center, and left. And if you look at these buttons up on top, it tells you which needle position you should be in for what button you're using. So if we look at this first one, it says needle to the left, and so you would then flip the knob to the left needle position. And then the numbers on the button, it says 0 to 2. You would set this outer knob between 0 here and 2 here. So this is the stitch length. So 0 would be minimum stitch length, and 2 would be the maximum stitch length that they recommend for this button. Second button in, again it's left needle position, and then the outer knob is set at 1 through 4. So you would set the outer knob between 1 and 4, depending on the stitch length that you want. So let's talk about this knob down here a little bit. It starts at 0 here, and then the next little thing we have is this is the buttonhole setting. So if you were doing buttonholes, you would set that. This is the mark, and you'd set the outer knob at the buttonhole setting, and then also the inner knob has a buttonhole setting, and so you would set it like that: buttonhole, buttonhole. And then we keep turning this knob, and we go. This is straight stitching without any of the buttons pushed down. We're just using this knob, so this is straight stitch out to about here, and then we start getting into zigzags. And then we get to the 5 position. This is a narrow zigzag, and we start with very close together zigzags, and we get further apart zigzags. Then we move it to the 6th position, and now we have a little bit wider zigzag width, and at this end of the spectrum we have very close together, very short stitch length, like a satin stitch, and then we get out to stitches further apart. And then we get to the next one a little bit wider, and the next one still is a little bit wider yet. And then we get here to the 9 position, And this is just a wide, long zigzag, and it gets narrower, 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 down to a short zigzag, short length and short width. So that's what this outer knob is doing. And that's apart from these buttons up on top. And so now if you want to use the top buttons, like I said before, you'd use the needle indicator, left, middle, or right, and then the number sequence on the individual buttons. So like over here, this is a center needle position, and we want a stitch length of between 0 and 1, and that gives a nice little diamond shape. So each one of these buttons, you just push it down, and if you want a different one, you push that button down, and so forth. And if you don't want any buttons pushed, if you want to raise them all up again, there's this other little reset button over here. Push that down and all of them come back up again. And so then we get to these two knobs, which deal with this cam stack, which is for this row of buttons. Now when we have it set to here, this kind of a diamond shape, this cam stack doesn't work at all. It just sits there. So we'll just turn it on and see the cam stack doesn't do anything when it's in this position. This cam stack always goes because it's geared directly to the shaft. But this one doesn't run unless this is off of this diamond position. And now you see this starting to ratchet around. And when that ratchets around, that makes these cams go around. Now it's a very small ratchet, and that's what this numbering sequence on the front of this dial is. 18 is the finest increment, and then if we run it down to 10, now you can see that this is moving very quickly. And so that means that the pattern that it's making will be short and very defined. If we run this out to all the way out to 18, then these patterns will be very long and slender. Another feature of this row of cams is this back knob is knurled, and it only spins one direction, but you spin it until this is at the very top, and that means that you're at the start of one of your designs. And so if you're sewing along and it ends up in one spot, and you come to the end and then you want to start the pattern all over again from the start, you just run that up to the top, and then you'll start this pattern at one end. So that's an interesting feature. So let me put this thing all back together, and we'll do a little sewing. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is load the bobbin into the bobbin case. And as with all bobbins, they go in. The thread is wound clockwise around the bobbin, coming out on top and going to the right. So we drop that in, and there's a little groove here. Thread goes up into that groove, and you pull it up into a little notch on this flat spring, and that's what gives the bobbin the correct tension for the lower thread. And so then when you pull the thread out, the bobbin should rotate clockwise. And so now we load the bobbin into the machine, lift out the little lever that holds the bobbin in, and we slide it onto the shaft, and it's locked in place. Okay, let's thread the top thread. This is a little bit different than other vintage machines. It comes around, there's a slot between the top cover and the side plate, and so it just goes in that slot and goes under this little flat disc, comes around to the front, and then there's this metal bar that it goes over the top of so it doesn't wear the paint off the machine. Comes down, goes through this little bar, and back behind the bar is the check spring. You probably can't see it, but there's a small check spring back there that takes the tension out of the thread when it's running. So we hook that under there, pull it into place. It goes up through the take-up lever and down through this other bar. There's one loop down here that it goes behind. And then it goes through the needle. Now this needle, the flat of the needle, sewing machine needles have one flat side, and so the flat of this needle goes to the back, and so then the hole in the needle is facing front to back, and the thread goes in from front to back. And you may be wondering why I'm not using the little automatic threader. It's because the little nub on the end of it broke off. So that's not working. Now, I'm going to take the lever, the foot lever on the back, and push it up, and it'll do one rotation. And it picks up the lower thread. That's all there is to it. And then we feed both pieces of thread out the back, close the little door, and put the plate back on, and we're pretty much ready to sew. Now we'll put, this will be just a straight stitch, and we'll do a fairly long stitch length. And if you want to raise the needle up, see I've stopped it with the needle down in the material, and so I can just take the foot lever and push it down, and it'll do a cycle up and stop. Now if I turn this a little further, it starts doing a zigzag stitch, and then if I turn it a little further, now we're into the zone where we have a narrow zigzag, and we can do a satin stitch at one end to a wider stitch, but the zigzag width stays the same in this range. If I wanted to do a wider zigzag, I would go to the next section and do the stitch width stays the same in this range, and it goes from a satin stitch to a long zigzag stitch. And so I'm just going to go to the widest zigzag and a fairly close kind of a satin stitch. thing I didn't mention, this the Pfaff 1222s have what they call, what Pfaff calls IDT, which stands for Integrated Dual Transport. And what it is, can't get a very good shot of it, but it's kind of a walking foot. It helps the material along while you're sewing. You can engage it by pushing down on it, and you can disengage it by pulling down a little bit and letting it slide up to the rear. And so this is, you can see the satin stitch. I had it a little wider than satin, but I could have gone a little bit narrower and it probably would have filled that whole area in. So anyway, let's get on to a little bit more interesting stuff here. Let me put this IDT foot back down again. Integrated Dual Transport. Interesting name for it. A lot of people just call it a walking foot, but it's not really a walking foot because this has a normal foot that stays riding on the material, and this extra little piece fits in between the foot on the back side and pulls along whenever the lower feed dogs are moving back. So it's got something pulling from the bottom and the little foot pulling from the top also. Okay, why don't we just go with how about a blind stitch? And it says to use left needle position and stitch length of 1 through 4. We'll do a long one. So I've got it up about 4. This thread is, I guess you can see it better on the back side. I have blue thread on the bottom. So you can see what it's doing here. It's a very long stitch length. I can go down to, well, they recommend 1. So that would just shorten everything up. Okay, let's do a fancy one now. We'll do the 5th one back here, which it'll bring the material forward and back to get the pattern right. And it says to do a left needle position and a number 4. Okay, let's try one of these decorative stitches. So we need to put this front knob. I'm going to put it on 10 to make it a very short stitch length. Or excuse me, very short pattern. And we'll do this little arc. It says to put the needle at the left position, which it is at, and between 0 and 1. So we'll go a half. Actually, we'll go down almost to 0. So I stopped it with this little diamond shaped thing in the back right at the top, and that means that it's at the start of a new pattern. And there we have it. Let me cut that off. And bring it up a little closer so it can be seen a little bit nicer. Actually, let's flip it over. It's actually nicer looking on the front side, but you can't see it as well. Now let's try doing a buttonhole. That'll be interesting. So we reset all the buttons. Don't need those for the buttonhole. And I'll put this back under here. Now for a buttonhole, we put the outer dial at the buttonhole setting and the inner dial at the buttonhole setting. The foot is down, and now it's going to, when I press on the control pedal, it's going to do the right side of the buttonhole, and it will go as long as I want the buttonhole to go. Now when I've gone as far as I need to go, I press on the lever and I hold down the lever on the right side here, and now it's going to do stitches the full width of the buttonhole, and they recommend you only do a few. It'll go as long as you hold the pedal down, so just do a few. And now I let up, and you can see that the dial has clicked around a little bit, and so now it's going to be in the position to do the left side of the buttonhole, and it's going to pull the fabric back this direction and run the other side of the buttonhole. And so then we keep going on that until we get to the starting point of our buttonhole. And I think it's there. And now we hold the lever down again, and it finishes the end. And then we let it up, and now this is going to clunk around a few times, and it's going to actually put a few tack stitches in along the side of the buttonhole. And now when this indicator is all the way down at the bottom, that's when our buttonhole is finished. And then if we needed to do another one, we would reset this to another spot, turn this back up to the buttonhole setting, and do the 4 processes over again. Now one thing with this inner dial is it doesn't turn backwards, it only turns in the clockwise direction when you're running around here. If you're over here doing the left, center, and right needle positions, then you can go between those 3. But once you get to the buttonhole setting, you have to go just in the clockwise direction. So obviously I didn't go all the way to the end of the buttonhole on the way back. But if you just ignore that part, there's our buttonhole. That's the back side. And here's the front side. It's not very good because this material I'm using is it's got a really thick weave to it, and so it's not very good for showing how nice a buttonhole can look, but gives you the idea of how to work this mechanism. One other thing I want to point out is the Bobbin Winder over here on the side. When I was looking at this machine in the store, I thought, it looks like the pin is broken off, but come to find out that's the way it's supposed to be. This is a magnet that holds a metal bobbin on, and so it doesn't need a post. And so I've got a normal class 15 bobbin, which doesn't fit this machine, but it's a steel bobbin, And you can see that when I put it on there, it snaps into place. And that's how the bobbin winder holds the bobbin on, is with a magnet on there. And then when you want to wind it, you push this lever back, and that drops a rubber tire down onto the wheel inside, and that's how you wind the bobbin. Now, to disengage the internal workings while you're winding a bobbin, you take the lever that's on the back side, the foot lever, the foot release lever, and you go from the horizontal position and you push up to the upper notch, and that will cycle the needle once and then stop. But then that's also disengaging the mechanism inside the machine. So now when I step on the foot pedal, the only thing that's going to happen is the bobbin's going to zip around. Have that on upside down. Don't want to unwind all the thread off of there. So that will go around until the thread gets big enough to flip this lever out and disengage it again. So that's another function of this lever in the back, is to disengage the internal workings from the motor. And that's how the bobbin winder works. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. Very interesting machine. It's 1980, so it's over 30 years old. The E and the model number, some of these are 1222 and some of these are 1222E. The E means that it's electronic, and so the foot pedal has got a very nice, smooth application of power. I push it just a little bit and it starts going right away. And you can see that it's very slow and controlled and pokes through the material very easily. It almost looks like I've run out of thread on the bottom bobbin, because it wasn't picking anything up when I was just running it then. So I guess I ran out just in time, didn't I? So there you have it, the Pfaff 1222E. A very heavy duty. It's I think it's a 1 amp motor, somewhere around there. Actually, I didn't show how the darning part works. But anyway, that's how 1222E works. Thank you for watching.